one of the many things that kept coming up at many of these meetings was the concerns for local energy producers. And there has been a lot of talk around the many who are concerned about the Northern Pass project, and they were worried that the local biomass producers, and you may be familiar with some of these wood power power plants, and the concern is, could Northern Pass put these people out of business? Well, Northern Pass hasn't been constructed yet, and there's already some pressures being felt by the local biomass producers. And joining us in studio is Mike O'Leary, who is the plant operator at the BRIDGEWATER plant in Ashland. And Mike, welcome to the program.
Thanks very much, Brian.
And joining you is Bob BERTI. He is the fuel procurement manager, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and that would be at the Pine Tree Power Plant in Tamworth.
No, actually, I'm affiliated with Bridgewater Power.
Oh, you are? Okay. Very good. Well, thank you. Well, anyway, good to see both of you in here today.
Great to see you, too.
With all of the discussions that have been going on in the past week, I'm glad you two were able to join us today to help put a very clear picture as to what is happening with the local biomass industry, and particularly the BRIDGEWATER plant that you can speak to. Is it true that you guys are operating without a contract with Public Service of New Hampshire?
That is true, Brian. We came off of our contract with Public Service Company of New Hampshire in August of 2007. We then entered into a 3-year power purchase agreement with Constellation New Energy that expired at the end of August of 2010, and we've since been selling into the spot market and struggling with our viability. There's 3 other existing biomass plants that are in the same shape in Bethlehem, Tamworth, and Alexandria.
Okay, and let's see, I think there's a few more around the state, too, isn't there? I'm thinking of one in Springfield up off Interstate 89.
Correct. There's one in Springfield and one in Whitefield, New Hampshire.
Oh, okay, good. So as we look at this, what do you think the reason is, that you're having to operate basically on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, we're operating on a day-to-day basis. We're confronted with really low spot power prices in the market, and we're being compared to spot prices, and it's put some real downward pressure on us. We also sell renewable energy credits, and the renewable energy credit prices have dropped significantly because they're based off of demand requirements of the utilities, and the utilities' demand requirements are down because the economy's as low as it is.
Sure. And as we look into the local biomass plants, and when we come back from the break, I'll pull up audio because I asked Congressman Bass about the threat to our local biomass industry. Anybody knows, it's no secret that Congressman Bass is a supporter of a number of biomass projects. There's a number of jobs that are related to our local power producers.
Yeah, Brian, directly each plant employs about an average of 20 employees. So there's 80 jobs directly affected in the plants, and then there's support jobs out in the fuel procurement area of about 100 jobs per plant. So we're really looking at 400 to 500 jobs that are directly affected and in jeopardy. And
Bob BERTI, speaking of fuel procurement, what does that mean? The loggers for the most part?
It means the loggers, their support staff, foresters, and truck drivers.
Okay, good. So we look at a number of things, and there was just a meeting a couple of weeks ago about the BRIDGEWATER plant in particular, wasn't it? Or was it about?
Well, it was hosted in BRIDGEWATER, but it was really about the fate of all 4 of the plants and about the industry. And so we really gave a perspective of where the industry is, and we from the power plant's perspective. But then we talked had representatives from the forest products industry. We had landowner representatives, and so we talked about a lot of the kind of ancillary effects that would happen if the plants shut down. And the state really benefits. It's a statewide issue. We currently live in a state that's about 80% forested, and a lot of our product does come from the southern tier of the state, and a lot of these businesses, this morning we just spent some time with two of our suppliers over in the Henniker area, so it's really statewide.
Sure, and Bob BERTI, you just mentioned where a lot of the wood comes from, and that gets, like I said, we have the loggers, you have the trucking companies, that send them up there, or loggers probably have their own trucks, right?
Several of the loggers have their own trucks, but then there are a lot of independent truckers that work for different logging companies, and so they bring fuel to the various plants that Michael's mentioned.
So with these issues in dealing with the spot market, basically that's driven down the profits too, right? I would think, and other.
Yeah, we're currently operating. Yeah, we're currently operating our plant at a loss, and that's the issue. It's how long do you run at a loss? And I think that it's difficult to do that. We're a plant that's had the same ownership for about 23 years. They're the original owners. They've done they're sound business owners. I look at the plants as a real New Hampshire success story. They came out of legislation, federal legislation, back in the late 80s, and they've been incredibly successful in the state. We've operated at high capacity factors. It's base loaded renewable power. We've had an incredible number of small startup businesses that have happened as a result of our businesses, and so it's been a real success story for the state. So it would be terrible to see it go away.
Sure. 1-866-823-1077. Mike O'Leary is the plant operator of the Bridgewater Biomass plant in Ashland, and Bob BERTI, the fuel procurement manager of the Bridgewater plant as well, joining us here on Bulldog Live. So as we look at what's been happening with the debates, a lot of people have been expressing concern so we can have more power generated locally. Do you see is the Northern Pass project in your mind related to you having to operate the way you do now?
Well, I think the Northern Pass, we don't make a direct connection to the Northern Pass, but where we look at the Northern Pass is the question of what is the real energy policy for the state, and the fact that we don't necessarily have a sound energy policy. We look at the Northern Pass as a definite threat 3 years from now, if it does come on, and a definite threat to future development of other renewable resources in the state. And we think that, and other renewable resources in other states that could have domestic jobs and keep those in-country jobs instead of exporting everything out of country.
Now, what happens with the power that you produce at the Bridgewater plant? Is that used in New Hampshire, or does that go on the grid and goes wherever it's sold to go?
We sell into the grid, so we sell into the 34.5 kV line, but power will get distributed to the closest source.
Okay, all right, I'm following that. So the jobs that we talked about, we're talking about 400 jobs statewide, roughly. Are good paying jobs, I would assume?
These are all good paying jobs. As I say, our owners have been great for well over 20 years. 18 out of 19 of my employees own their own homes, so these are real New Hampshire people, real New Hampshire jobs that would be affected. And they all have full benefits packages, and these are really excellent jobs for their area.
And Bob BERTI, what have you been seeing in the local fuel market?
As it pertains to what's the impacts it has on the harvesting community, there has been a complete revival and change in the way the operations happen in the woods. Many of these contractors started out as young men with a chainsaw, and they have increased their operations to where many of the investments are now in several $1 million. It's not uncommon to have a crew and an operation that's $2.5 to $3 million of just equipment investment. And an important factor is that the safety and what's happened in the woods with the mechanized operations. You don't see, it was not uncommon 25, 30 years ago to see 3 to 4 to 5 men killed every year felling trees, and today you don't see that. So, I mean, there's been a complete change in the way what happens in the woods, not only from safety, but also from silvicultural operations.
You know, I'm thinking, either of you can answer this, about the tax impact to the state, you know, the benefits that the local biomass producers generate. I'm thinking timber tax, Bob.
Well, it's significant, and the tax on fuel chips is limited, but when you look at the whole scope of what happens, and you realize that in a typical logging operation, it's not uncommon to see 50 to 60% of the fuel of the material harvested to be chips, and that. What it does, it allows people to put out a volume of wood and thus reduces their operating cost. And that reflects all the way through the marketplace, including people in the sawmill business that are able to get their product at a lower cost.
And Mike, do you know of any other economic studies that show a statewide tax impact?
Well, there's a significant statewide impact. Each one of the plants, there's a statewide utility property tax, so each one of the plants pays to the state $6.60 per thousand of valuation just for straight property tax, and then pays their local town property taxes, and so that's significant. We pay a lot of other fees directly to the state. A plant like ours sends about $50,000. So, you know, you can almost look at that as supporting one job at Department of Environmental Services just for our permanent fees. And then each one of the suppliers has a lot of registrations and that type of thing with all the trucks that are on the road. So there's significant tax ramifications.
And if I may add, in the case of just one logger in one town, to the town in registration fees or town taxes on his trucks, he pays $22,000 a year.
Wow, holy cow.
That's one operator in one town.
Gee, yeah, that's, whew. Yeah, you know, the towns, I guess, would, where you operate in your town, how have they been reacting to, you know, the hardships that you've been facing?
Well, the town of Bridgewater has been a terrific host community, and we feel like we've been a great business for them. We contributed over $200,000 directly to the town of Bridgewater for when they built their village school. We're part of the fabric of our community. I mean, we've had, as I say, excellent owners. They've given me a great community relations budget. And, again, real people, real jobs. They're out there. They're coaches in their communities. They're volunteers. They're civic leaders. So it's significant.
All right, 1-866-823-1077. Mike O'Leary, plant operator of the Bridgewater Biomass Plant, and Bob BERTI joining us here in studio. And we'll continue to talk about this and what we can do to help support our local biomass producers to help keep jobs in New Hampshire. Right here on Bulldog Live with me, your host, Bulldog Brian Tilton, on the Pulse.